Screen rolls in.
Yes, sir. The code. The code. The code.
Well, hello and welcome to The Code. I'm Pastor Henry Green, and I have the privilege of sharing this time with three generations of Black men, something you see very rarely. Three generations of Black men chopping it up, because we know if we talk through it, we can reason it through. So normally we have Tavi Patterson with us, but he's out today. And so we have a special guest with us. So guest, can you take a moment and introduce yourself?
Please.
LaMarcus Hall, educator, higher ed professional, adjunct faculty, Martin University.
And Dad, I see.
And Dad, as you hear my young man in the background.
All right, Dad, go ahead and handle your business.
We handle it.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Dwayne Lloyd, D. Lloyd, aka the original. I represent that 50-something crowd. And we want to welcome to the call, my man LaMarcus. Welcome, brother. Your input is welcome and your perspective will be valued. So thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
And I'm Pastor Henry Green, founding pastor of Emmaus Christian Church, entrepreneur, and I represent what we call the plus crowd. So we don't use numbers anymore. We just put a plus there, which means we've lived long enough to make a lot of mistakes. And that's what's called wisdom. When you messed up so bad, you know to never mess up like that again. Well, tonight we have an interesting topic. It is about preserving the dream. So first of all, let's talk about dreams, because, you know, one of the things I'm running into with a lot of particularly young people and unfortunately older people is there's no dream.
Yeah, that's problematic, because to me, what that screams is that there is no faith and there is no communion with the God of all creation. Because in my mind, the way to get a revelation of who you are, and then the dream or the purpose for which you were created, is to be in communion with the God that you serve. And so people don't have a dream. That's kind of, you know, it's indicative of there being no relationship with God the Father.
Gotcha.
Well, for me, I think it, you know, it's the most important thing right next to salvation. I think salvation is probably number one, but right after that is finding the purpose for which you were created.
Yeah.
But on the flip note, how can you find your purpose when the people that you're looking for put on their white coats and their bishop robes and drink their grape juice on Sunday, not being relatable to the community? So what they see is what they be. So if you choose not to be real, you're subliminally conditioning your people to be uppity, to never go back to the community. Well, my pastor don't never come out to the community. I don't ever see him. Every time I want to talk to the pastor, I gotta go through assisted. He's never available. So if the person that they're looking for is not available, how do you expect that community to function? I think right now, 21st century, people are needing of healing. People are needing of activism. People are ready to see those with titles really on the ground and turn the gears, not sitting on the sideline and oiling the gears.
Well, you know, but I guess from my age group, some of that can be a little different. Because there are moments when you change the dreams or the functionality of your dream. Just like I had a mentor that was very, very hands-on. But we got to a point where I think his being hands-on was defeating his own purpose.
Mhm.
He had reached a point where I believe the way his dream should have manifested at that moment was to empower other people to do the work.
Yeah.
Because he had moved to a level where he could really had access to way more than he could handle. But he had the power to put people on, and sometimes because he was so inundated in the day-to-day work, he missed that he had become a kingmaker. And that is a little, when you move to that level, it's a little different.
Yeah. And I think it's also too in tying in what you just said, there's also a timing too. There. I mean, it's when you look at the Bible often has this in Japanese culture. It's called the senpai kohai relationship, the teacher-student relationship. And I think a lot of times you will see people who want to move into that main position with no training whatsoever. And then when they get there, or, like for instance, Pastor, I'm sure you've seen it, pastoring churches a few times, somebody preach a message, or somebody feel like they got a word in them, and they do not submit themselves to, someone who knows more than what they do, and they run out. I'm gonna start my own church, and then they run out. They do something, and then it's like, oh, it's not a good look, and it didn't work out because they didn't go through the proper steps. Which, in my mind, it always includes that training. It always includes submitting yourself to somebody's leadership, for some amount of time before you're ready to go out and do that thing. Who was it? Was it Timothy that felt like he could go in and deal with the possessed person? And when that demon spoke, he's like, "Who are you?"
No, the sons of Sceva.
Yeah.
No,
yeah so is that
down? Yeah.
Yes. And so the demon. I know him, but who are you? Because there was no place of learning and no place of cultivating who you are to understand what your purpose and what your goals should be.
Yeah. So let me tell you. So this was interesting because this was right about a year ago when we were knee deep in the protest following George Floyd incident, George Floyd murder. So I was on the phone. A bunch of us were on the phone with one of my mentors, and he was kind of saying to me or us, somebody needs to take this thing. Which one of you are going to take it? And now I could get some blowback about this, but I said no. The failure of the generation before me was they didn't anoint anybody to carry on. There was a generation of very powerful Black men, and none of them anointed successors. And so when we hit crisis, now they want one of us to assume the position. Where you made it a lot simpler by anointing, should have stepped in that position. And I said, you know what? I said, really, to be honest with you, that time has passed for me. It wouldn't make sense for me to try to take leadership of a young movement. So what I committed myself to was finding the younger leaders in the movement and encouraging them. And so I contacted several of them and I said, hey, let us know what you need. If you need a place to meet, if you need a place to assemble and talk some strategy. I also have access to some strategists that are very good, but it was not my place to try to be out front of that. But I did take a responsibility to say, hey, let me help support somebody younger that's really in position to walk this thing out and build the credibility they're going to need over time.
Yeah.
But Pastor, you bring up a good point though, which goes into the I know my audience, I know my culture, and I know what's going on at play. So just because you may not be on the scene on the front line does not mean that you're not doing the mission work. There have been many cases I get opportunities as such to do where I am asked to, come in and speak or be on a panel. For me, it's not the title. At the end of the day, you can't save the world, but if you could touch one person, you touch enough. So a lot of times I think, there's a rap song our teenagers deal with now. There's a song entitled "We Do Anything for Clout." So one thing about clout, it fades away. If your intention is to do something just to get your name out there, look at me, that fades away. But when you change lives and your name circulates through the community, that's when you know you're a foot soldier. That's when you know you got the real people. So like you said, you knew who were some of the key players right now in the community, and you offer your hands to give those certain people the tool to move the community forward. I mean, let's look at Moses and Joshua. Let me see. Was I correct? Moses knew what time it was. Eventually, he knew he had to pass it down. So what he started doing? He started priming Joshua early, give him extra things to do. And then guess what? When he transcended, Joshua took the people forward. But a lot of times people don't want to let the next generation lead. Oh, this is my church. Oh, this is my denomination. Oh, this is my record label. Oh, this is my community. Okay, have you checked the numbers of your community? They're dying. Meaning you need to move out of the way, let somebody else come in. It is not to diminish the history and things that you've done prior to, but it's to let you know, hey, it's a new day. So when you say new,
and I think the great point there is that the moment Joshua was assigned leadership, God started to give vision.
Mm-hmm.
And he started to say to Joshua, you got a dream. I think it's in Joshua 6, maybe 1 or 2, where before the battle of Jericho, he says, see, I have given you the city and its mighty men. Then again in chapter 8, after they've had a defeat, he goes back and says, now see. And I think it just emphasizes the importance of having a dream.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people don't get there.
And without a dream, people perish. Well, it actually says vision, but in this, in this context, dream and vision, this synonymous. It's like, so if you don't have something to look forward to, that's it. Why are you here? What space? You're taking up space. One of my favorite movies is World War Z with Brad Pitt, and there's a scene on there where they need his expertise to go in and to try to figure out where this whole zombie apocalypse started. And so he says, no, I can't go. And his family is on this submarine. And the captain of the submarine goes, everybody on this submarine is essential personnel. If you're not going to go in here and do what we actually do, then your family is merely taking up space. And so if you don't have something to do for the kingdom, but you claiming Christianity and you ain't doing nothing, taking up space. I got right here, I don't know if you can see it right there on my wall, right there. It says, God created you to do something. And if you don't do it, don't trip. He'll find somebody else to do it. It's real simple. Saul didn't want to do what God said do. And God's like, all right, I'll give me a David. Don't trip.
So D and LaMarcus, let's talk through some specifics now, like for your personal dream. Let's talk through how that dream took shape. How did it come to fruition, what you were called to do?
Ooh,
I'll go.
Yeah, go. No,
I'll be pretty short and then unravel as time goes. I would say that my dream honestly was not pure as in 2020. When a train is coming down the street or from afar, sometimes you can hear it before you see it, right? So a lot of things are part of my vision were from my narrative. It was from my experiences. It was from being an educator, going through the K through 12 arena, eventually becoming an administrator, and being mentored by those around me. Long story short, the vision sometimes will expand. You know, sometimes you hear your elder say, be careful what you ask for, because when Jesus show you what it is, it may not be what you want. So, you know, I had a plan this way. He sent me through some other detours. But at the end of the day, just because you're on a detour doesn't mean you can't come back to the main highway. For example, you try to get on 65 right now and go to 70, you can't get on 70. If you roll down 30th Street and go down far enough, you can jump back on to where? Shadeland of the street. So I think when it's really your calling to do something, it doesn't matter what's going on around you, the finances, the income, the landscape, the culture. What's meant for you is going to happen. So, you know, what is Habakkuk 2 said? 2:2 says, have a vision, make it plain. I think a lot of times we just had a vision, but is it really in plain? Is it really on the wall like blood, or did we just come up with this? Did we tap into this? Did we go to the creator and say, look, is this what you want me to do? Did we put ourselves in a situation and say, have your way, Lord, send me where you want to go? One thing I found is when I started to just open myself up more than tunnel vision I was blessed to be in other avenues when I submitted to that. I can't do it by myself. The degrees can't help me get where I want to be. The people can't help me go where I want them to go. Because let's be honest, we can be cool right now, and then I can run up on somebody at a Christian convention. We may not even talk. So that being said, you can't rely on man. You can't rely on people. You got to have a strong faith and know where you're headed. And a lot of times I think we get frustrated is because while we're seeing out that vision, when I talk to students and mentor them, we go through this situation of that gray cloud, or that summer rain. You can see, but it's not clear enough. So a lot of times we get so frustrated in that moment, we just quit. But I had to submit and say, you know what? Maybe I'm behind this cloud for a reason. Maybe the people who jumped ahead of me and got the sun, I'm in the rain. Maybe they are not getting empowered and getting the tools like I'm getting right now. So once I learned to submit myself to him and say, you know what, I am where I am. Lord, use me when you can. Things got better for me, definitely mentally, because I finally figured out I wasn't fighting myself. I was fighting myself, not the creator.
Wow. For me to understand what God had for me to do, it all came through an uncle. My uncle loved motion pictures. And particularly he loved Star Wars, my mother's brother. And he would literally pull me and my younger brother out of school. He called my mother, excuse me, Lord, let these boys miss school so they can go see this movie. And she'd be like, it's a movie. And he'd be like, but you don't understand. It's the scale and the scope of it. And so he would pull us out of school, me and my brother Devin, excuse me, and have us sitting at the opening, the first showing of the Star Wars movie. And I'll never forget sitting there watching, you know, in those days, motion pictures had the blue lights. Whenever somebody shined a flashlight into the screen, all you saw was a blue light and just kind of just flared out. And I remember the smell of the popcorn and the excitement of the people. And those are the things that started to churn in me. Well, shortly after, Pastor, and I've been very transparent on our show before, you know, right after that, I started to understand the magnitude of motion pictures. The enemy came in and tried to distort the way I saw visuals by introducing me to porn. And it was his way. If I can twist the way he sees this enough, then he'll never do the very thing that I know God designed him to do. And so it was through that process I began to understand, like, the place the devil's fighting you the most, that's probably the place that God has called you to be.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's what it started. That's where it started. It started in that place, being, you know, witnessing the power of motion pictures and understanding that I had something to do in that arena.
You just took me back to going to church as a kid. You know, the service that we want to avoid a lot of times is the service that we need to be to. Like, look back on your life, the one you was late to, your kid got on your nerves, you ran out of snacks, you had a flat tire. When you get to that service, it's literally the one for you, right? But I think a lot of times, like I said, we get so caught up in, I need this now, I got to have it now. When technically you might be in preparation. I talked to a mentor. I was telling him some of my struggles about where I wanted to be and how I was beating myself up, not Okay. Oh, he's in the back. So, not hitting goals, not doing things I want to do at certain times. Come here. Come here. What I end up finding myself doing was I was comparing myself to other people's deadlines.
Yeah.
And it took some of my close friends who were mentors to tell me, you have your own journey.
Yeah.
So just because we got finished at this time, just because we hit A, B, and C at this time, doesn't mean it was for you. Your journey is your journey. And another mentor encouraged me to take a social media break, a 30-day social media break. And as I did that, I realized my mind was so clear. I wasn't lurking and looking and trying to find that. Long story short, if you want to go spiritual, you break a limb, we can repair that. We can cast that up. You have a heart issue, we can put a balloon in it. But the devil take your mind, everything upon you will cook like eggs. So if you notice, when we are taken mentally from stuff, we tend to be down more. But when it's something physical, or I had an incident, I'm going through tribulation, you go in, you come out. But anytime you see when they take a person's mind, you pretty much done for. My elders around me used to say, idle mind is a devil's workshop. So we are also being conditioned to think that whatever situation we're in is mentally crippling us so that we can't be on the path that, or preserving the dream as what we should be.
Well, I think you made a great point that one of the things that will undermine the dream is comparisons.
Absolutely.
When you start to compare your journey, comparison is absolutely a tool of the enemy to try to shame you out of the process and journey of your dream.
Right.
Like for me, and I want to come back to this point, but a lot of times people are like, there's one dream. I am experiencing a merging of dreams. And even the dreams that were a little distorted are still merging back into purpose for me.
Right.
And I was just having this discussion with somebody else. Marcus, I hadn't shared this with you, but my early life, I owned restaurants and nightclubs. And so I remember when I set that dream, I was 19. It took me to 27 to 26 to actually open up the club. And I remember even after graduating from college, man, there was a lot of people were trying to shame me because I was really committed to being entrepreneurial. Even my family didn't understand it because I was hustling. I was doing, when I say hustling, I mean operating in a lot of businesses. I had a t-shirt business, a landscape business. I would just do whatever I had to do to make my way. And so one of the ways, believe it or not, that I made my way while I was trying to learn the craft was I was the picture man at the club. So I'd go in the club, roll around, take pictures, sell pictures. And like dudes I went to school with, man, they was like laughing at me. They like Henzi out here. And half the people didn't even know my name. They just called me Picture Man. So I was going through this and I'm like, spending $150. And I was making $350 to $650 a night selling pictures.
Oh, wow.
But because it wasn't the manifestation of the dream I had at the time, people shamed me. And I remember like even the women. So when I finally did open the club, people were like, well, whose club is it? And they was like, Picture Man.
Wow.
And like, people are like, how Picture Man get a club? How did he get a club? Because they thinking, you're a pauper because you make it away, man. I used to love going home counting that money at night, after I tucked it in the bag. But it was hard to keep it because people were comparing you. So, you know, I didn't buy the latest model car. I had at the time what was a Chevette, which was like a little hatchback, and my boys driving Cadillacs and BMWs. And so it was that delayed process that allowed me to live the dream. But man, some of them days was hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you look around and your life is not comparing at that moment with many of your peers.
There's a new you know, you see a lot of memes and stuff on social media and stuff now. One that sticks out to me, you see it posted on a lot of people's pages and things of that nature. It says, your vision is not for everyone. It was not a conference call.
Yeah.
And when that hit me, I mean, that bad boy challenged me to the point where, I mean, I went through months of no posting, to the point of evaluating, well, did you post something too early? Did you throw your vision to the wolves? You know what I've learned now, sometimes it's best to move in silence, and when it manifests, then post it. Another key thing I try to do is be silent, and if it's meant to come out, let it come out from another person's platform. Therefore, I'm not perceived as an arrogant one. So there's different ways you can do it.
So in the rough day, what do you do? What do you guys? So the days that is really hard to hold that dream, to preserve, what are you doing?
I call my select two friends, my select two guys who I know. First of all, they real friends, so they're not social media friends. They're not going to be the one to be like, yes, like, great. They're going to tell you what you need to hear and what you may like and what you may not like. I think that's very important. Is to, you know, you hear people say keeping squares out your circle. Everybody, a person that's a square can't fit in a rounded circle. So if you got people that got points and dents on them, or they're not growing as you are, move them out the way. It might be time to reshift your mindset and get in a new circle.
Gotcha.
I tend to, on the tough days, man, I tend to go to a place of worship. Worship tends to get me there. You know what I mean? It's like, because it's, for me, worship is downloading instructions from God Himself. You know, the more I get into it, the more I become inspired to continue the dream. And at some point, for me, God has given me a word that in those tough moments, I remember that word and like, oh, this is what God said. That ain't happened yet. Let's keep it going, because I know that if I stop, it's problematic.
Or if you get the vision and you feel you got half of it, what I've learned to do, take notes in your smartphone, put in your notes. And because you know, sometimes you'll get that random hit, like, oh, now I see what you're saying. Write that note down in your phone notes, and it'll come back. And when it come back, you can just dissect that bad boy and get the further instruction.
Yeah, because I'm sharing honestly. For me, I am now. This is my 27th year in ministry. My 19th year as a senior, and God is still bringing clarity to the vision. And so it's parts of it is a never ending process. And it's like, I'm at a stage now where I continue to have these aha moments, like, oh, that's why I did that, or that's why I had to experience that, or even my whole entrepreneurial drive. When I was younger, I thought the purpose was to be a millionaire. I was driven, like money, enjoyed money, that whole thing of, wanting to be able to live in freedom, the freedom it creates when you don't have to adhere to somebody else's schedule. I had all of that, but now I understand as a pastor that I'm still called to help entrepreneurs because they have very special needs. And I remember when I was an entrepreneur, no disrespect to the church, but at that point, it didn't provide what I needed to preserve my dream.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little better now at helping In fact, I believe I'm called to dreamers, achievers, and believers. I
I
believe
know,
that.
I know this might be random, and I've never took this step out on faith to do this, but you're a pastor, so you have a deep understanding in some things I don't. But what's the word? I'm about to throw some encouragement out to you, and I don't even feel worthy. That being said, you can only pour so much. Like make sure you take time for yourself, Pastor. Make sure you take time out to smell the air. We always talk about, make sure you smell the air because when they leave this world, they won't smell the apple pie and roses on the casket. Okay, the same thing can happen for you. A lot of times we give, but you don't have time to, catch a fresh breath of air. So one thing I try to do is make sure I take time for self too, because you can't. One thing about me, we have an event. I will give my best. I'll cook everything on that grill. I'll make sure everybody eat. I'll make sure everybody is good, has a good time. But nobody knows, okay, did he actually get a piece of chicken? Did he actually get something to drink? Nobody knows because at the same time, mentally, you are conditioned to take care of everybody else. Same thing applies with your goal and vision. You still got to take time out to breathe. And being pushing 38 in September, I'm just learning to do that. And I realized the first 37, I just been running like a hamster on a wheel.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes life circumstances to make you see that. Sometimes it takes your children to make you see that. A mentor once told me, she said, I don't care what you go through. I don't care what kind of hell you feel you're in. She said, if you don't get up every day for nothing else, get up for your kids. That has pushed me in so many different ways I can't even explain, Pastor.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I have learned how to do that. But the other thing that does continue to help me is getting into environments that are similar to my dream. Dee, I'm sure you could appreciate this. My wife is called to work in Hollywood as well, and so she had been paying her dues. Like she had done some television work, and she was working out of Detroit. And so, we really made that sacrifice. She was going up to do a show on the Word Network every Friday. So we had a driver, thank God, that would drive us up, and she would do the show, and the driver would sleep, and then we'd finish the show, and the driver would drive us back to Indy. And we did that for like 3 years. And then she went on Impact, and she was there left Monday morning, came back early Thursday morning. But that wasn't what she was called to. She was called to LA. And so I took a sabbatical, the only sabbatical I've ever taken. And we took a month off and just went to LA so that we could be in the place of her dream, and just being there helped locked in that dream in a different capacity, because it seems like life tries to beat the dream out of you.
Absolutely. One of my favorite scenes in any movie, there's a movie with Tom Hanks, which he's my top two. There's Denzel, there's Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks has a movie called A League of Their Own, and it's about women baseball players. And there's this one scene where this girl, she lives with her dad on a farm somewhere. And Tom Hanks sees that she can play baseball. He says, hey, why don't you join our team? And she tells him, I don't know how to think about it. She goes home and she talks to her dad. And her dad says, baby, this is your dream. And she's like, but I don't want to leave the farm. And the next line, it continues to send chills down my spine. He says, but you have to go where things happen. And she packed up her bags and she went and joined this female traveling team, baseball team. And so I always, for whatever reason, I tend to extrapolate, spiritual lessons from motion pictures, because that's who I am. But that's the one thing that has resonated in my spirit, is that you have to go to where things happen. And I tell people, I talk to people in LA, they're like, well, what's the industry in Indianapolis? I'm like, it's mostly medical and pharmaceutical. If you want to be a nurse, if you want to work in pharmaceuticals, Indy's your city. It really is. It's the place for you to be. But if you want to work in Hollywood, you need to be in LA. Atlanta's coming up, and I'll give Atlanta its props. But Atlanta, let's keep it a buck. Hollywood is Hollywood.
Yeah.
There's no place like Hollywood. When you've been there and you get in the mix of it, There's no place like it. Atlanta's making its moves, and the other places are making its moves. But Hollywood, man, that's just, I mean, if you're called to Hollywood, go to Hollywood, and
Yeah.
that's what you got to do.
And that's what we did actually before the pandemic. You know, she was kind of going and coming, and we'd get a deal halfway done, and then she'd leave and she'd go back. And we really just kind of concluded, I said, you know, we have built a life that we can make this sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And Dee, you will probably appreciate this because LA is a lot like pledging to me.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
yeah,
man.
They have a pledging mentality in LA. They don't care who you are. You are not going to cross the burning sand.
Correct. And the thing is that, like you said, it's like pledging. Right, I've never pledged, but I know I've been around it so often. I know what happens when people pledge. There's that. There's cliques. There's schisms. There's this, that, and the third. And then on top of all of that, because LA is so big and so fast. I mean, I'm a numbers dude. By comparison, Indianapolis Metro Indy is about 2.5 million people. Metro Atlanta is 6.5 million people. Metro LA is 18 million people. And so you got to know your geography when you get there. You better know your geography when you get there. So now you have to deal with the regions of LA, and then you have to deal, like you said, with basically the fraternities of LA. And it's a whole thing. And I think, you know, once you get there, you start to feel it. And you're like, okay, this is how this goes. Okay, you know, one of the, I don't want to say unfortunately, but fortunately, one of the things that Black people understand in LA, if you're really serious about doing films and being in the system like that, you have to have a Jewish friend. It just is what it is. Because Jewish people, they have their own network and they know everybody. And it's a fraternity. You're pledging.
Key point. Two points there. He said, "What if I need a lawyer? I need a lawyer that's Jewish." Two things in that. Number one, we know they are a peculiar people. Number two, even Rick Ross, the rapper, makes a connotation to it. He says, you know, people try to get to me, in paraphrase, people try to get to me, but all my lawyers are what? Jewish. What am I saying? He knows how to metaphorically be around the right people at the right time. Going back to the whole thing of fraternity, I belong to Fraternity Active, member Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated. In fact, our general convention will be here in Indianapolis, July 13th through the 18th. But, and it's not a plug, that's just my pride in who I am. But in that, what a lot of people get the whole thing of fraternities and cliques confused as well. Because like, I joined fraternity, I'm good, life is great. No. I tell people all the time, before you can get involved in fraternity organization, I want to tell you up front, you're going to put more in than you get out. So if you can't get that, if you're looking to come to an organization to feel loved, and you're looking to come to an organization to have this new lifestyle, I tell them up front, you may not get that. You know, if you're truly serving and doing what you're supposed to do, it really don't even matter what fraternity, sorority, or organization you're in the first place.
Well, Marcus, let me ask you a question, Marcus, real fast.
Come on.
Is a Q more apt to help another Q or a Kappa or Sigma first?
I will say in my, again, while I've been a member of fraternity, going on 18 years in the fall, I would say as an undergraduate, you know what I'm saying, a typical age 18 to 23, of course you're going to lean to your own and help your own first. But when you get out into this real world, when you pull up in LA, people probably don't even care that you're alpha. I've been in situations, I've been in meetings where they didn't even care the fact I was alpha. They would care that I was a Black man professional, and clearly if I'm active in a fraternity, obviously I have some type of work ethic and some type of call to service. So,
but as the systems of LA work, like you said, a Q is more apt to help a Q. Not that he wouldn't help a Kappa or a Sigma, but he's going to help a Q first. And that's what you're saying about LA. You know, the systems. Let me help my own first, and then I may help you.
I have no problem with either mentality. If you would say, get me help mine, that's fine. Because at the same time, if you look at your history, a lot of times we as a people, we're always the one who suffer. But then if you look historically, we're always the ones who have to be the ones who diversify and let everybody else in. So when it comes to, like, if your original dream was to serve your kind or serve African American males, serve them first.
Yeah.
Going back to your dream thing, if your dream is to be an entrepreneur and people yapping at the mouth, or like they would call him Pitcher Man, my counter question to you, Pastor, is where are these people that would call you Pitcher Man now? How many grades are they in today? How many times did they falter? How many times did now they come back and say, oh, Pastor, if I knew what I knew then, and I would have supported you. No, if you saw my vision, it was clear right there in front of you. You chose not to engage, you got left behind.
My pastor has a great saying. He said, if you knew how God was going to bless me, you would have treated me a little better.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I need to meet the pastor.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so let's talk about why we think so many people give up on their dreams. Why do so many people give up on their dreams?
The frustration, again, you got to look at the population that we're in right now. The population that we're in right now says, I got to have it right now. It's magnetic. I need it right now. If I don't get it right now, I'm going to lose my mind. We're not pushing through an age of hardcore civil rights anymore, where you had to wait and, like they say, a dream deferred or delayed, not denied. A lot of things now are given to us as quick as coming out of a microwave. So a lot of times we don't want to wait. We don't want to put in the work. We want our deal now. And a lot of times that frustrates people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go historically looking at dreams, I mean, look at people like Martin Luther King, W.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington. They all admitted that at certain points of their career, they felt that they misled their own people because the vision was not acting out the way as they intended. If you look at go back and look at W.B. Du Bois, he's not buried in the United States. He intentionally went and buried himself in Ghana. Everybody kept asking, well, why did he choose Ghana? Why is it the W.B. Du Bois Center there? Because before he passed, he felt that this was my vision. People didn't grab a hold to it, and it has messed up my people even more. So he didn't feel being worthy of being buried in the States. He chose to go back to Ghana.
Yeah,
so
I've had the privilege of visiting his estate there. It's quite a process. But I do think I think you're on to something that a lot of times people's visions, they don't live in the vision long enough to bring clarity. And so I'd like to think of a dream or a vision as just a snapshot of a moment in time. It really does not give you the details or the process. And even my journey into becoming a pastor, I am so glad that God only showed me a snapshot, because if he had shown me the process, I'm not sure that I would have said yes.
I've heard somebody say something, paraphrase, say if he gave you the vision up front, loud and clear for you to see it, it may have been too much for you. So he had to give it to you in snippets, like a developed picture. Oh, here's a snippet of this. Here's a snippet of this car.
Yeah.
Here's, I've had dreams of, here's a snippet of you speaking amongst the nation, or you speaking amongst thousands of people. I don't know where they come from. I'm not at a point of asking why in this situation. What I'll say is I just try to practice my craft, volunteer, being around like-minded people. Opportunities as such come up 30 minutes before, as I'm headed home, being available. A lot of times we miss the dream because we're not available, and we think that we're already there, when in reality we're not there. Our ego, your ego can put you in more traps than the world if you allow it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, our people. I mean, sometimes it takes a tribulation, it takes a fallback, a setback to throw, or if you will, being thrown off the horse to get you to figure out things. Hopefully, it's early.
I'm sure you see this, because that's my concern for our children, is that I run into so many children that have no dream. I mean, they're just existing. And LaMarcus, I had one occasion where a kid got killed. And so one of my members called and asked me, like, Pastor, can you go into the school to provide some counsel for any of the children that were having a hard time? Well, I had never done that before. So I'm like, sure. I wanted to go and have that experience and see what it was like. And LaMarcus, really, like, I talked to 8 kids. None of them were that upset about the young man that got killed, but they were using this as an opportunity to vent their own grief.
But once again, Pastor, if that's your condition and nobody's not coming in to teach you and show you the rights and wrongs of things, if that's what you know, it's what you know. I mean, we take this pastor to poverty mindset. If all pastor know to go is to go to rental center, keep renting. My kids keep going renting. My son right here keeps renting. We're not breaking the cycle. And another thing I've learned, unfortunately, in hard ways, sometimes we as a people, we don't want to have the hard conversations. And I know this to be true from my next stop, Lance. No, I'm talking. No. So, hey, Pastor.
Hey, Pastor.
There you go. So what I've learned, sometimes we don't want to have the hard conversations. Or like, where's your vision? Where's your goal? What I've found in my narrative, that when it comes to people who don't look like me, they have those conversations. Yeah. They tell their young sons, this is how we dress, this is how we act, this is how we're going to be. If you don't follow up with plan A, you're going to run the family business. If you don't run the family business, you're going to do this. We still in 2021 are following the concept of, I got mine. I'm moving up north. I got mine. The hell with my community. Yeah. And until we break that cycle, until we stop hearing people when we go to the executive meeting saying, "Oh, I can't go back to that town," until we stop getting to the point of calling them, they, in urban community. Pastor, you know what they saying it means. Oh, in the urban society. No, call it what it is. Call it the slums and the hoods that you once came from, but now it's urban because you're choosing to sell out your culture and no longer identify with that. Call it what it is. Because at the end of the day, if we pull some teenagers in the room right now and you put on your coats and your ties and your bow ties, you can fool me, but you can't fool them. Particular black male, a black male who's been in poverty, been in the system. At this point, by the age 13, he knows how to read who's out here to get a check and who's out here really to help me.
So how do we get them dreaming again?
As I tell people, we need to, they say it's called top layering. We need to come from the top executive and put back on our blue jeans and go back to the community. One thing you quote me on, Pastor, is I have this theory called the child next door. If everybody in the community, worried about the child next door, what a better place we would be. When I came up, it didn't matter where you played. It didn't matter where you were. There was discipline. There was family. If I was in the grocery store and not doing something I was supposed to do, Pastor Green could look at me and say, "You know what, son, you're not doing right." Pastor Green could discipline me and tell me and put me on the right direction. We no longer have that. My kids right now do not know the neighbors next door or the kids down the street. Why? Because that's the current society we live in. So, like they say, each one teach one. Maya Angelou, if you know better, do better. So, again, I can't save the whole nation of Indianapolis, but maybe we can start with one neighborhood. Maybe we can start with one street. Maybe we can start with one house and let those feelings and let those services trickle. I think if we're really going to do it, we're going to have to tap from the executive board level of organizations, churches, organizations, and come down. Because at the end of the day, the people from the bottom feel disconnected from the people at the top. How many times have you been pastoring and then you all of a sudden one of your good colleagues, he's become a bishop? He's taught to you every day, Tuesday at 1:00. Now he's a bishop. He only has time to talk to you twice a year. What is my point? Now that he's so elevated, sometimes you can be so elevated you can't see what's holding you up on it from the bottom.
Well, I think that is some of the challenges of growth, but some of it is legitimate. Now, some of it, I think, like you said, can be ego, but some of it is reality. So it's like with my people, the people I'm pastoring right now, I've encouraged them over the last few years. you have access to me right now in a way that in 3 or 4 more years, you may not have access to me just because of the weight of my schedule. And so take advantage of this time. And you know, I think for me, we're trying to create programs at our church that I'm calling programs of exposure. Because it feels to me like so many of our kids can't dream because their exposure is so limited.
Okay. One thing my father used to say to me, like, he said, when I was coming up, we lived in the projects. He said, son, what is a project? I said, a project is a temporary thing, a temporary procedure, a temporary study. He said, right. He's like, what's my point in this? He was like, we've made the projects our permanent home. In other words, where we are, we stay where we are. We don't elevate or move further. So I think with your vision of saying that you want to create a movement instead of a program, sometimes it's wording. I mean, sometimes it's genre. Sometimes it's bringing the kids in. If I had to offer word encouragement to you today is don't have 85 people playing in youth events. Number one, they don't have no kids. Number two, they don't even know what's going on with the youth. They still playing in youth programs based on when we were doing the Free Will Association. Okay, that's not even in check no more. People barely have vacation Bible school anymore. So if we don't know the needs of the people, or know the needs of the youth, or know the needs of the church, how can we plan programs? You know, like I said, a lot of times you see people, they rise up to the CEO. They don't even know the issues down on the floor because guess what? They're so elevated that they can't see. So I think in the end, I would say is don't get too high to the point where you can't learn from the janitor. And then at the same time, don't get to the point where you can't learn at all. I've seen many cases where people can't learn at all until they hit some type of tribulation or high point that, you know, make them fall to their career.
Yeah.
But our youth need us. Our youth are tired of fake people. Our youth are tired of people selling them out. I mean, let's be honest. The school system already sold them out. Half of the pastors they can't talk to. In closing, I always talk about this when I do panels. Escape had a song back in the '96 called "Who Can I Run To When I Need Love?" And I've asked various people, religious, non-religious, youth advocates, who can a black male run to right now? I don't trust my pastor because my pastor don't know me. Not you, just in retrospect. I can't trust the medical people because, you know, it's still taboo to get into your health due to Tuskegee experiment. You know, the people in the congregation, all of a sudden they put on white on first Sunday. Now they're holier than thou. I can't trust them. I can't trust my school teacher because, you know, everything I do, I'm an animal. If my eyes buck out, I have aggressive behavior. If I go in the community and my music too loud or I don't have on a shirt, I get pulled over. So really, who can a black man trust? Other than faith, I say no one. And until our black males see more people than just you, Pastor Green, out there in the streets doing the real work, they're going to continue to be confused. They're going to continue to be confused until you pull up one day and play a game. You pull up to a house and read a book. And they can tell you're not doing it, so you can run to your car and put up a social media picture and say, "Oh, you know, I was over at Sister Greenhouse. Look at me, I'm reading." People looking for authentic service now, not Facebook posts.
I agree with you. But I do think that for the system to work, it has to work on multiple levels. And I think that's the challenge, is that all levels can't do all things. I mean, so let's take it out of the back.
I agree too. I agree too. I'm using that metaphor. I'm saying being that you identify as a pastor, but yeah, that could be Eli Lilly. That could be Target right around the corner on 30th Street. You are correct. Every level can trickle down.
But it is the necessity of every level that keeps that. I think the breakdown in our community is to some degree the individualism that does not let the cross social economic barriers be crossed easily. So like in the example I was telling you before, if I get to a place where I have access to the movers and the shakers, and I can help influence policy, I need people that are operating at those other levels to then help me understand the policy that is needed. I may not be able to go and sit at a kid's house on a regular basis to have that. Now, I think exposure, like we said, is critical in that, you got to have some of that so you don't lose touch. So even when somebody on a different level tells you have at least enough experience to validate whether that's an appropriate assumption or not.
But you know what, Pastor, you practicing something right now that 90% of these pastors don't do once they become pastor. Listen.
Yeah.
You might not have times you walk up to these pastors, they tell you what they believe in their own way. Do you know their environment? Do you know where they really come from? If you don't know them, they're not gonna listen to you. They're gonna treat you just like a club flyer. They're gonna look at it, hey, this event, and throw it away, go in the wind. What happened every time you take a flyer and put it on the car and it rains? It eventually evaporates and disappears. So what I'm saying is that the fact that you sit down and listen to the people and figure out what the needs are shows me that you're trying to be engaged. I
don't know if I would agree, Lamarcus, at 90%. I think pastors get a bad rap because there's so much weight on a pastor in our community, I think the concept of the church is somewhat obsolete. And when I say that, that's because at one point, the church, particularly in the Black community, was all things to all people. But that was when life was very simple. And now we really live in an a la carte society. And we're still trying to hold the church to this all things to all people. So here's an example. I had a friend of mine that had a kidney disease. And so he was in the hospital and the kidney doctor came by. And so I stepped out of the room to have a conversation with him about something that was happening. And he said, "Oh, I don't deal with that part of the kidney." And I'm going, what? Now, not only do we have specialties, we have specialties of specialties. That's how refined the world has gotten. Now it's not just a kidney doctor. There's a kidney doctor for this part of the kidney and a kidney doctor for that part of the kidney. But we still want the church to be all things to all people. And I believe that's where some of the confusion is, because when you try to be all things to all people, you end up to some degree being nothing to most people.
Okay, good point. So I totally agree with you, Pastor. So we can take this to the PBS special that just came out about the Black church, right? When it first comes on, it acknowledges all faiths, and it talks about how the Black church was not only a place of receiving your faith, it also was a place that provided social services, educated kids, provided food, clothing, shelter, i.e. they were serving people meals before the Panther Party. However, like you just said, in a new day and a new time, the church is not giving that, and I accept that. So some things you can get help from a practical basis. Yes, you need faith, but the pastor is overweight. You can't do everything. And let's be honest, church is not church anymore. A lot of people don't even look at church as a place to dwell. A lot of people look at church now through their narrative and circumstance as a place to, let me go pay my tithes and pray something happen, or let me go and just put on a show, and then who cares about me on Monday through Saturday. So I think with the church now, I think the church as a forefront is somewhat dwindling. And I think COVID has really shown a lot of people like who some churches are, or who certain religious people are. Yeah, there are some restrictions again with COVID and CDC, but it doesn't, I'm restricted. I might got to sit beside you right now, Pastor, with a mask. That don't mean I can't call you.
Yeah.
You know, history says now that a handwritten thank you card is as valuable as money, because we had now have been in a conditioned social society where if I just click like on Pastor Green's page, oh, I care about him. Or if I just put a message on your send your email, I care. The handwritten personal meaning has been taken away. A lot of people hurting in the black church because they feel that they expected A, but they got C. But like you said, again, I think the church and where it is and what it can be now is changing. And I'm not blaming the church. A lot of it is the time and the century that we're in.
Well, I think it's just the opportunity for new strategies like everybody else. Just like the kidney doctors, I think we have to stop trying to operate as autonomous institutions, and there has to be a new cooperative bent, which is a little difficult at moments because we take people to a place where I think what you said about trust is inherent in our culture. And I think that trust just does undermine the capacity for all to dream.
But I think we also need to get back to our roots, dare to dream. Look, if we look at our history, it's that the first slaves, when they were free, the people let them go, and the slaves were like, "Where do you want me to go? I'm free now. Where do I want to go?" Because they've been conditioned for so long to stay. It said that some of the slaves even stayed at the master's houses because they knew, well, if I dare to dream, I don't know if I'm going to eat, but if I stay at the master's house, I'm going to eat. A lot of times we fear the unknown.
Oh, absolutely.
So when we fear the unknown, we don't know what's out there, what resource can help us.
Well, I'm just a proponent of, regardless of what we say, one of the things that God has made me abundantly clear is the church is still God's chosen institution. And as imperfect as it is, there still is an anointing to do things that no other institution can do. And so, I just encourage people to be careful about giving up on what God has anointed. The Bible does say he's coming back after a church. Now, maybe we even have to look at how we define a church, but God is coming back after a church. And so the church is a grand old lady, and she has some issues, but she has done way more good for our community than she has done harm. And I'm just not ready to throw her out yet.
I'm okay. Understood, Pastor. I think in closing, I would say I'm not Apollo's trainer on Rocky. Throw in the towel. That's not me. What I'm saying is that we need to go back to the drawing board and just figure out how we can serve the community better. Whether that be from a church, whether I put on a T-shirt, whether I put on a church robe, whatever the case may be, we need to adjust. When I say adjust our culture, I'm not saying decrease your faith and like not represent the Lord. What I'm saying is like in the first level child development, as a tall person, what do they tell you? A child speaking to a child from above, they won't listen to you. You first have to learn to do what? Get on their level. And I mean, get on their level in the sense of understanding, not necessarily get on their level as in follow the world.
Okay.
But I think those are the first steps.
We hope this has been a blessing to somebody. We've kind of covered a cadre of topics that was around the concept of preserving the dream. So LaMarcus, if you were just giving somebody final words, what would you share?
Thank you, Pastor, for allowing me to come on the show. I would love to come back if you may need me for any services, whether it be in the community, serve on a panel, speak to your youth in any way that I can. Call me. I'm here. What you see is what you get. One thing you know about me, Pastor, is despite any point. Okay. What you'll find is in the refrigerator. What you'll find about me is that I won't sell my culture out for a cookie. So what you see is what you get. I'm not that token carrier, and I'm not that status quarter hire. I'm here to serve. Thank you, Pastor.
All right, and I would just like to share that whoever you are, you've got to get a dream. The Bible does say, where there's no vision, the people perish. So every day you're not living your dream, you die a little more. So ask God to reveal a dream to you, and it will change everything in your life. Your life will never make sense till you understand why you were put here. Well, this has been The Code. Join us every Wednesday as 3 generations of Black men chop it up. Join us next week on The Code.
Thank you, Pastor. Glad to be here.